I like our music to, if not make people like feel a certain way, like think a certain way. And like, it's hard to do with music because it has to be like poetic and nuanced and like it has to rhyme. So you can't like, it's not like rap where you have the luxury of like really being direct and like saying everything you want to say perfectly. But at the end of the day, like it belongs to everyone else now. So like I want people to do their own thing with it, you know.
Heavy music has always defined itself by resistance. Resistance to the mainstream, resistance to softness, resistance to compromise. But here's the part that gets lost a lot. Heavy music only survives because it evolves. Every era has artists who upset the balance, not only by being louder or heavier, but by rethinking what the genre is even allowed to be. And for me, one of the clearest examples of that in the last decade is Bad Omens. A lot of people talk about Bad Omens like they came out of nowhere, like TikTok flipped a switch and suddenly they were everywhere. That version of the story ignores the reality that in fact they slowly, deliberately, and almost obsessively built that success. Nothing about this band is accidental. Sound, visuals, pacing of the releases, and definitely not the way they hold control over their art. So I want to walk through that journey from the very beginning through the criticism to the explosion, the burnout, and explain why Bad Omens might be one of the most important heavy bands of this generation. Welcome to the series The Genius Of, and today let's talk about Bad Omens.
To the life you don't get to choose, another Antichrist on the evening news.
As always, let's go over a bit of background before we proceed. Bad Omens was officially formed in 2015 in Richmond, Virginia, and as you probably know, the real starting point comes down to one person. Sebastian, the shy, soft-spoken kid from Richmond, grew up immersed in music. By his mid-teens, he's already learning how to produce music on his own, inspired by bands like The Plot on You and Beartooth. The first three The Plot New albums were engineered, mixed, mastered, and produced by Landon, and the same goes for Caleb Shomo, who engineered, mixed, and mastered, and produced Beartooth's first EP and the first two albums. The idea of having full creative control is not a new thing, but we can say that Noah was heavily inspired by those two modern heavy bands. While playing guitar in a band called Immortalist, Noah was quietly writing his own material, and eventually he walked away and decided to build something from scratch, and that something became Bad Omens.
Essentially, it started as a simple solo project I was doing in, I guess, my spare time. I was working in a tattoo shop full time, and I just loved making music, and I had recently quit the band I was playing guitar in back in Virginia. Basically, I quit that band and I started writing just material, like solo material for myself, recording it, and I made, an EP for this band under a different band name. And, throughout that time, Nick Ruffillo here, our guitar player, he was and still is obviously my best friend. And he was the first person, I guess, that was part of the band as it became a band, because we realized once the EP was done and we got management and stuff, which, we seeked out, that we needed a band, obviously, because it couldn't just be one guy. So obviously, my best friend played guitar by default, in the band. That's when he brought on board Vincent. Vincent plays bass in Bad Omens. And basically, I didn't know Vincent very well at the time. We were just acquaintances. But Nick and Vincent both tattoo professionally, and that's how Nick knew him. And, once I got to know Vincent and found out he played bass and he wanted to be in the band, we just clicked really well instantly as friends and as musicians. We shared a lot of similar tastes and interests, and even some personal, private experiences and opinions, I guess. So we got along really well, and it made for a good start to this band. And then that's when we realized we needed another guitar player, and that's when Vincent reached out and told me about his best friend Joachim, who was playing guitar in a band called Her Bright Skies at the time, all the way in Sweden, which sounds, I guess, not very ideal to get a guitar player from another country, but Joachim sent us a bunch of music he had written, and he's a producer, so we had that in common. And he just also, same story as Vincent, he clicked really well with me as a person and as a musician, so I just knew that he would bring value to the band. And to this day, I still think it's one of the best decisions this band made, was getting Joachim on board despite his nationality, because he's been such a huge help to the band as a songwriter. At that point, all we needed was a drummer. And our manager at the time put us in contact with Nick Folio, but I guess the email thread kind of died out or something, and it got mixed up and lost, and there were a few other submissions, drum covers of the songs. That's when Folio reached out to me personally on Facebook and was like, "Hey, I didn't hear back, but here's my cover of your song." And, you know, when we all saw the video, we just knew, like, he had to be in the band. Like, he had a very cool, intense, unique, feral playing style. It was very animalistic and intense, and that's exactly, you know, what I think we've all agreed we wanted this band to represent and be like since day one. So he immediately had a place in this band as a drummer. And keep in mind, this is all before, you know, I even met Joachim or Folio, which is very interesting.
The band eventually relocated to Los Angeles and began to fully work on Noah's vision. He was, and still is, the primary songwriter, producer, and creative director. The band's name, Bad Omens, was originally supposed to be the title of one of the early songs, which ended up becoming known as Glass Houses. And the band also previously went by other names, including Children with No Vowels and Man vs. Self, releasing an untitled demo EP containing rough versions of their debut album tracks. The EP called the attention of Sumerian Records, and it was good enough for Sumerian to recommend taking most of the tracks and turning it into a full-length album. And for this video, I've been searching for this EP everywhere, literally everywhere, and I never will be able to find anything besides the track Exit Ones. Any of you guys have the full thing, please drop in the comments.
Cool. So you already had the deal and everything, and then now you're putting your band together.
Yeah, we didn't even rehearse until after we signed the record deal.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Were you nervous signing the deal, just in the sense that you had already kind of seen the thing fall before?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I was super nervous, but I mean, for where we were and where I was at the time, it felt like the only possible way to like get my foot into the door of the music industry, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sumerian, you know, there's weight to that name in the alternative and rock and metal world. So yeah, we signed the deal and we went and did our first rehearsal ever in Virginia and started practicing the songs, and you know, then we started working on our first record.
Their self-titled debut was released in 2016, recorded in New Jersey and produced by Will Putney, guitarist and co-founder of the deathcore band Fit for an Autopsy, and also a member of Anne and Better Lovers.
Bad Omens. Bad Omens came in as I had done a lot of work for the label they were on at the time, and I knew that was more of like a development kind of thing. They had like really big aspirations for that band from day one. It was a different sort of approach where they were just trying to make a big band. They were looking at stuff more under a microscope. Not to say that's a bad thing, but it wasn't as like purely creative from an artistic sense as like some of the other records I made. It was very much like, we want a big band, we want big choruses, songs that work. And it's not normally the type of records that I'm super into, but I really did enjoy working with those guys. They are all very, very sweet. We had a lot of fun together in the studio, and it was cool to see really handy guys. Like the guitarist of that band is a very creative dude. They did a lot of sound design stuff that was like just on par with any other professional producer, engineer, and it was cool.
And let's be honest here, when the album came out, the comparisons to, especially with Bring Me the Horizon, Sempiternal, were unavoidable. It has similar vocal deliveries, similar production choices, similar electronic textures. And yes, those influences were real, but also like many first works, especially for younger bands, the debut was more about establishing themselves as a legit band to prove that they could write modern metalcore that was polished, emotional, and cohesive. Songs like Glass Houses and Exit Ones, now the polished version, hit hard, but they were controlled, and nothing on the album really feels sloppy or random. That record earned them credibility. It got them on Warped Tour in 2017, touring with Parkway Drive, Stick to Your Guns, and put them on the map. It felt like the beginning of them laying the foundation. They also dropped the first music video for Glass Houses, which we'll cover more when we talk about the visual identity of the band later in this video. By the time Finding God Before God Finds Me dropped in 2019, it was clear that Bad Omens didn't want to live in anyone's shadow. The album was produced entirely by Noah and Joaquin, and it has a darker, more industrial, and more psychologically intense approach. Sonic is still fair to compare with Sempiternal, but it has a way more personality than the first one. This album lyrically dives more into faith, identity, self-destruction, and internal conflicts. And songs like Death Throne feels oppressive and calculated, while tracks like Burning Out expose vulnerability in a way that felt uncomfortable for a lot of heavy music at the time.
Yeah, Finding God Before God Finds Me, that was a fun one. That was also like the most difficult one to make because, you know, the pressure was there of having a semi-successful first record, and now like people are
gotta follow it up.
who we are. And yeah, so at the time, me and Jolly were living in Santa Clarita, and we had set up a studio in our garage. And we pretty much just worked on that record whenever we were off tour and at home. Engineered that one ourselves and produced that one ourselves, except for drums. We did go to our buddy Alex Prieto for drum engineering, because he has a really cool drum room in North Hollywood. It felt like an appropriate second record without deviating too far from our sound and our roots, to like get people a little more warmed up to the idea of us being a more experimental band, I guess, and not just restricting ourselves to like the metalcore genre.
It was also around this time that the band faced the first major controversy. I guess they were initially scheduled to open for the Emmett Affliction and since failed on their 2019 tour, and however they dropped off the lineup on the date of tour was announced. Since the Fail stated the reason was that Bad Omens logo was too small on the promotional flyer, and the band denied it, releasing a statement clarifying that they left because agreements in the signed contract were not fulfilled, and honestly, we probably never know exactly what happened. And then a little bit after, the first US headliner tour was postponed due to COVID in 2020. With a lot of time at home, diving into their ideas and instruments, with a huge inspiration that Noah and Joaquin got, especially from Billie Eilish's approach of recording at home, The Death of Peace of Mind arrived in 2022, and this is the moment that everything changes. The timeline goes almost like this. On November 10, 2021, they released the song The Death of Peace of Mind, and they announced the third studio album, the same name, set for release on February 25th of 2022. On January 19th of 2022, they released the lead single, Like a Villain, followed by a music video on February 2nd. The album dropped a couple of days later, and it was again produced entire by Noah and Joaquin. The music video for Just Pretend was released in June 8th of 2022, and boom, with a little push from TikTok, Just Pretend became the band's biggest hit to date and is certified platinum by RIAA.
We had a real good leverage through TikTok, and like how a song got popular there, and through that whole engagement, a lot of other people started listening to us through that way, which is an awesome thing to happen to a band like us, which I don't think that, we're not a TikTok band.
With us, like, I think we're a great example of TikTok working for us and us not working for TikTok, I guess you could say. Because we never did any of that style of content where we're like talking to the camera, like trying to like hop on a trend or like cover a popular song right now or whatever. But we had all this success on TikTok. And we've only ever posted like the content that we make in every other format that we like on there, like the horizontal cinematic tour video updates and stuff, the way we like to present our brand and our visuals. And we're not like adhering to this like trend that I feel like is so repetitive with that, like, I guess, film style or whatever it is with like, I don't know. I just think that people take inspiration maybe too literally when it comes to TikTok, where they're like, it needs to look like this. I need this tool. Right. I gotta sound like this. I gotta have the captions and like the witty one-liner that grabs people. It's like too forced.
And the band talks a lot about how big of an irony it is, because the song was actually supposed to mock how easy it is to write a radio-friendly song.
I love the vocal takes and Just Pretend. That took a long time to track and get the exact one that I wanted.
I think you said that you were trying to like prove how easy it is to write like a radio rock song.
At the time, I was like frustrated with like people in my ear talking about like, oh, you need to focus on radio and you need to do octane and this and that. Never having an ulterior motive when writing has always been like a strict rule of ours. Like, we just want to make music that we like and we're proud of. So with Just Pretend, it started as like this ironic like butt rock song. Like, even the way I was singing in the demo, like I was like doing this exaggerated bravado. As silly as the vocal sounded, I was like, this is actually a really great chorus, because I was kind of just like freestyling. It was a very natural, like I had written some chords and I just started singing in the booth over it, and this like melody came out, the lyrics came out like really quickly. So last night we just realizing that a song that was written to like poke fun at how easy it is to make radio rock is now #1 on the radio rock charts is like the most ironic full circle moment this band will probably ever have.
Whoa! If you're watching to now, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Help me support this channel. I appreciate everyone's support. As always, let's go back to the video. The overnight success transformed a rising band into a face of a new generation of metal. Not only because Just Pretend is a great song, like you already probably know, but honestly, Death of Peace of Mind is an album that redefines metalcore, or whatever you want to call it, because it actually goes way beyond metalcore. The pieces are still there, but it's not the main thing. You hear alternative rock, electronic, minimalism, pop structures, so many pop structures, R&B influenced vocals, and long stretches where heaviness barely shows up at all.
You know, when we're writing, a big part of our writing process is producing, whereas like a lot of bands in the rock and metal space, they have, you know, the skeleton of the song and just guitar, drums, and bass, and maybe vocals before they start producing and doing post-production. But with us, the post-production is such a large part of our sound now. And that's why I've said in the past that I feel like, you know, we're almost more of an industrial band inspired by rock and metal, or an electronic band inspired by rock and metal, more so than a rock and metal band inspired by electronic. Because typically with rock and metal bands, those aspects come after. Whereas with us, we start with those for almost every song. So at that point, when we're writing and producing all the records as we go, we're like, why don't we just produce this thing ourselves? You know, all we have to do is, the only thing we didn't have the means to do ourselves was engineer live drums, which, you know, we live in LA, so there's tons of great, you know, drum rooms and studios and drum engineers out here. So that's one of those things with the budget. We're like, okay, how much can we spend on the drums and getting a really great drum sound, getting a great drum engineer, and you know, how much can we spend on the mix? I believe we outsourced all the strings on the record, like all the orchestral stuff from this.
That's awesome that you didn't do that on the keys. I like that so much.
Yeah. We did last record, and it's cool, you know, but like with this one, there's a lot of moments where the strings are very prevalent and even sometimes solo. So it's like we really wanted it to sound real. So we outsourced to this company in Prague that had like a whole orchestra basically that is cool. We got to like kind of monitor it live on Zoom. Sure. And like kind of almost direct them in a sense, and they would like loop the song, they'd play through, and we'd get to like pick out individual people, but maybe you can play this like a higher octave or things like that. So it was really cool. Like I've never done anything like that, even though it was, you know, virtual. It was still very cool to get to, you know, kind of manage this symphony in a sense.
That's so cool. I really, again, I thought it was going to be synth, you know, just synths, because that's how people do. They cheap it out, you know, like
there's times when you can, and sometimes we even blend the two. But you know, with this record, we really wanted to pull out all the stops. And you know, strings is just something you can tell when it's fake. You know, even if it's like it doesn't bother you, at the very least you can tell. And you know, there's a lot of moments where there's like a lot of passion with the strings, and you know, it wasn't, we had the money to do it, and I was like, whatever, let's you know, make a little less money ourselves producing it and make a better product. That's always been our motto. Even when we go on tour, like, okay, how much can we make versus how much can we reinvest in like a new piece of gear or maybe something to increase the production value of the show. And we always elect to do that, even if it means we have to work 10 times harder off tour, you know.
There is a super interesting video on Noah's live streams, I think it's on Twitch, around that time that he was creating music for Death of Peace of Mind, showing him using non-instruments to create the raw core of the title track. Objects around the house like a frying pan, a couch, and even his dog. It gave a glimpse into the band's studio workflow and Noah's approach to song design and songwriting.
I was just bored out of my mind in my house and trying to come up with like something fun to do as like a producer. And a lot of people I've admired that are producers have like done a lot of sampling, experimental stuff. So I wanted to try sampling things that weren't instruments to like make a song. So long story short, I did all this weird stuff to different things around my house that I recorded audio clips of and made like the instrumental that eventually became the Death of Peace of Mind.
With a great response and success of the album, the following year saw them touring with Every Time I Die, On the Road, A Day to Remember, The Ghost Inside, and Beartooth. The headline, a North America tour with Dayseeker, Make Them Suffer, and Thousand Below, tour Europe, and later in 2024 released the album Concrete Jungle, DOST, to accompany the Bad Omens Concrete Jungle Volume 1 comic book, and also as a experimental extension of the Death Peace of Mind, similar to Linkin Park's Reanimation. They become as big as they could possibly dream of, and another huge piece of this puzzle is the visual identity and total artistic control. Apart from the music, which is in many cases not even the most important point, which in Bad Omens is, but not always. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough is how visually unified Bad Omens is. And satisfying too. From album covers, music video, merch, stage design, it's all minimal, control, and intentional. And one area that Bad Omens truly separates themselves is the music video. It feels like they treat them like emotional extensions of the songs. They step away from the norms and are very creative, different from most bands that rely on either warehouses, performance shots, or sometimes boring storytelling. And honestly, the live shows have the same approach, especially after the release of Death of Peace of Mind. And that's something that Noah mentions a couple of times as well, being the part that he spends a lot of time doing, and it is something that sometimes he enjoys as much as creating music. Take the video of Death Row and Artificial Suicide. The visuals are aggressive but not chaotic. There's industrial spaces, harsh lighting, fast cuts, but everything feels claustrophobic and intentional. That feels that you are trapped in the same mental space as the song. Now comparing that to Just Pretend and Like a Villain with slow down frames and negative spaces that you can see Noah often isolating the frame, and even with others are present, mirroring the album's themes of disconnection and internal conflicts. The band avoids traditional storytelling altogether, and there is a rarely clear beginning, middle, and end. Instead, they rely a lot on texture, color, lighting, and pacing of communicate emotion that reinforce the same ideas the music explored, like isolation, control, anxiety, and emotional numbness. And also, it's very hard to see Noah portrayed as a larger-than-life frontman in any of the videos.
I put a conscious effort at all times to like apply a level of tastefulness to like our branding and visuals and our aesthetic to like kind of just like echo the stuff I'm into in our music and in our brand. You know, even like I even put like movie clips from movies I love in our live set and stuff. And
yeah, cool.
You know, I think it's a cool way to like give people a glimpse into our personality as a band and as like people personally without like oversharing on the internet all the time or updating what you're eating every morning on your story.
And even the merch leans closer to a modern streetwear, pulling a lot from their love of anime, modern fashion, and minimalism designs. And I have been meaning to do a video about merch for such a long time. There's so much to talk about, not just from Bad Omens, but band merch as a whole, especially in the modern days. But that has to take a little longer, but I'm gonna do it. And if you have had opportunity to buy a Bad Omens merch, because they sell out, man, like water. They just go so quick. The new stuff just boom, vanishes. Mostly because they do have one of the best designs nowadays.
I mean, our merch store is like a huge staple at this point in our band, and there's like jokes about like how it's compared to the Hunger Games because it sells out all the time. And you know, we like really hype them up. Like we don't just drop merch. We'll like do like a teaser and start like promoting it until like a day and a time that it's going live. So there's like a lot of anticipation with it, almost like dropping a song every time we do merch. And it's a lot of fun because I really love our designs. I think we have really good designs, and that's why we work with the same people all the time. And I love like being able to still be involved with that. And also not to mention, I mean, just the financial aspect. I mean, merch is like the main income for bands these days, especially touring. And, you know, I feel like you have to be involved and invested in that part of your band to like expand as a business and grow as a business. So that's like one thing I don't feel like any band should neglect or just like kind of pawn off on someone that's just trying to like collect a paycheck. You know, it's something you should put time and energy in. And that's what we did with our store. And that's why like, you know, the merch drops sell out all the time. And we're like actively trying to keep up with how much demand there is. Cause every merch drop, there's hundreds, if not thousands of like really angry people that are like, I had it in my cart. And by the time I hit checkout, it was gone. And like, you know, we're trying to remedy that at all times.
But like Uncle Ben said, with great powers comes great responsibility. Still affected by the incredible success of the Death Peace of Mind, Bad Omens had to cancel the major European tour dates in 2024. Noah publicly spoke about extreme burnout and mental overload, and there are many examples of him being harassed online by fans, people creating stories about him and the band, people showing up at his house, and I can't imagine how scary that must have got, especially from something that was so niche that exploded overnight, pulling from fans of other helms, especially from TikTok. This level of obsession is not really common with metalcore bands. And honestly, that moment might be just as important as any album they have released, since it opened discussion and divided public opinion. But the reality is that this is not an easy decision. Canceling a tour, it's always the last option for any artist or band, especially at that level of popularity. I have to imagine that things were serious for him. And kudos for everyone that instead of pushing through and pretending everything was fine, they choose transparency, they chose his health over the momentum, and a genre that still romanticizes self-destruction. That decision matters a lot.
I mean, a big part of this band is like self-awareness and like almost social commentary. And sometimes I feel like our band, with like how, you know, wild the internet gets and like our fan base gets, sometimes like it's like a social experiment almost. at least for me, because I find that stuff interesting. Like I find like philosophy interesting and stuff like that. And as like a, you know, deep existential thinker at times, I like to see like how our band's influence on like culture kind of translates that type of like thought process, and like gets me kind of like gets the wheels turning, and that like further inspires ideas for the live show. Like I'll just come up with things for the live show that I think is really fun or like makes people question stuff. Like last night I couldn't remember if we had played the venue before, and someone told me that we hadn't, and I was like, I'm gonna see if everyone just cheers to cheer or if they're actually listening. And I was like, who here saw us like when we played here last time at this venue? And a couple people were like, whoa. And I was like, we never played here. That never happened. Like, I got you. Like, it's a mean trick for sure. But because sometimes maybe they just didn't want it to be awkward and just silence. But I don't know, there's stuff like that where I just like, this band is always making me think, you know, about like things beyond just music. And I think that's really cool. Like, it's like I'm learning more about myself and like just my experience here as a human being, like through music, beyond just music. And I think that's like pretty cool, fun part about being in like a band, you know. And this is where Noah Sebastian becomes especially important to talk about. He isn't just a good looking talent frontman, he's a generally obsessive artist, and at the same time a very human one. I cannot imagine what it's like to live in his head during the creative process, with countless ideas colliding constantly, and now with the amount of exposure him and the band has. You can definitely hear his flaws, fears, and self-doubt throughout Bad Omens music. The anxiety, the need for control, the fear of losing himself, the tension between wanting connection and wanting to disappear. It feels really real. His perfectionism, sometimes unhealthy, like he openly talks about it, comes from a genuine care for the craft, and every sound choice, mix decision, and visual detail has to meet the standard. And want it or not, that obsession, it's why Bad Omens operates at such a higher level. Bad Omens is the extension of himself as a human and also as an artist. Listening to Bad Omens, and oh man, I already listened to Bad Omens, and for this video I've been immersed on their music for, I would say, a month. It brings me so much comfort and at the same time a year's sense of discomfort. It's weird that the music gives me answers while still leaving space for questions. It's such a perfect escape that trying to pin Bad Omens to a genre is such a hard task, and it completely misses the point of the music. Metalcore, sure, is part of the DNA, but it doesn't define the band anymore. They have proven that heavy music doesn't have to be loud to be heavy, and it also can bring emotional weight, restraint, and vulnerability that can hit just as hard as any breakdown. The year of 2025 marked a transition year for the band, with 4 single releases in a quick succession on each month, starting in September, October, November, December. The singles Expect, Impose, Dying to Love, and Left for Good. Each song is different, but all came from a headspace Noah described as reflective, sincere, and genuine, setting the tone for what comes next. Me personally, but I think we are waiting for an album in 2026, but I guess like GTA 6, at least I am willing to wait to get the finished product when it's time. Don't rush. Do your thing.
I mean, I feel like Left for Good is a perfect entry point for that. I mean, where were you when this one came together? Because it does feel like, you know, you focusing on the sort of quality as opposed to the quantity, and it does feel like you're not watering anything down on this track. And it does feel like while you still have an eye on the future, this one still feels like it's speaking to the day oneers as well as the new fans. How did Left for Good come together, and kind of how did this song take shape?
It was the same like core crew that I write with. It's Jolly, our guitar player, and our best friend Mike, who is also a producer and a writer, and he's in another band called Chief. Yeah, we just jam in the bed. We have a nice bedroom studio set up.
Sure.
And we just jam and play with sounds and sound effects and pedals. And I'm always, when it comes to heavier stuff with the band, my ears are so fatigued with almost everything because the limit has been pushed in the heavy space.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm never gonna make something heavier than like this thing that's like max velocity, like triggered drums, you know, lowest guitars and guttural screaming. Like, so then that's like you have to reframe the approach to heavy and how you get there, and that's what makes it heavier to me. So I don't know. I think I lean more melodically these days because that universally, since the dawn of time, has conveyed more emotion than just straight, you know, primal heavy stuff, as much as I like it. And with this song, we try to split the difference.
to achieve so much so early in life, but also have the calmness and understanding that everything in life comes with time, hard work, and willingness to put time on it is an incredible thing to see. Listening to so many interviews by Noah, especially by Noah, from the other guys as well, but mostly by Noah, and here he's so mature for such a young age, for someone that dropped out of high school at 15, talk so calmly and soft and with a clear vision of what he needs to take care of, how he has to go about his music, what his music means to him, how he's not gonna change the way he approaches if it's popular or not. It really opened my mind for a lot of things in life, honestly. And hopefully they continue to grow, and it's gonna be amazing to see what they can achieve and how far they can push. It does feel that they're just getting started.
I like our music to, if not make people like feel a certain way, like think a certain way. And like, it's hard to do with music because it has to be like poetic and nuanced, and like it has to rhyme. So you can't like, it's not like rap where you have the luxury of like really being direct and like, you know, saying everything you want to say perfectly. But that's like what the beauty of like doing press and like interviews are. Like, people get to ask me what my interpretations are about the songs and like my intentions, and then I can be a little more clear with like what mine are. But at the end of the day, like, it belongs to everyone else now, so like I want people to do their own thing with it, you know.
So with this new album, obviously you're doing not only writing the songs, which is all encompassing, but you're thinking about the visual aspects and what the stage is going to look like and all that. How involved is everyone else?
Well, with the writing stuff, Jolly and I, we do pretty much all the writing, and more recently, our good friend Michael Taylor, he's in a project called Chief, and he's also helped produce a lot of our music videos from the last record. And we lived with him for a long time, and he's a great guy. He's a good friend of ours, and he is a really talented writer and producer as well. And we've kind of brought him more into the mix, full-time writing. So right now the core writing group is me, Jolly, and our friend Michael. And then like with the stage design and the creative and the visuals, that's pretty much all me as far as the creative goes, like the conceptualizing and the audio side of the live show, like making the tracks and the transitions and the instrumentals and all that stuff and the voiceovers. And yeah, it really just takes a lot to me with the band. Bad Omens has gotten so big in like a commercial way, and I don't want the creative to fall under that like ripple effect of the commercial side of success, and
Sure.
to retain like integrity and like a strong creative like DNA that's always been there, because I'm so hands-on with it. It takes a lot more time than other bands to do something. You know, like other band goes to a studio or a producer, they write a record for a month and then they're done. And the rest of the work is like mix notes and maybe like a pickup line they want to re-record or something. But I'm like trying to do all this stuff, and I'm trying to get better too at delegating and finding more people to help me with the creative stuff that
Yeah.
I just don't have time to do all of it and sleep at night. But yeah, it's a good problem to have. You know, I think it's just the curse of us getting more in demand as a band. Like, more people want to see us in more places more often, and people want new music, and people want all these
that
things.
says something.
We can't
That
do it
says
once,
something, yeah.
you know?
Right, of course.
We can't go play in Spain and write a new record and then shoot a music video and do all this
Right.
stuff, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I refuse to like bend the knee, so to speak, to the conventional format and like expectation of a band of our size to like deliver things at a certain time at a certain rate. I
Good for
deliver
you.
things when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't wait for that, like, there's plenty of other stuff for you to enjoy in the meantime, and hopefully
Love
we'll
it.
come back to it when it's
That's
ready.
rad. Yeah,
you
that's
know?
rad.
But I'm not going to put something out that I'm unhappy with, even if it takes longer than it should.
Thank you so much for watching this video. This comes from a fan to another fan or fans. I appreciate everyone's support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Happy New Year's. Happy 2026. This is the second year I'm doing the Genius Off. We cover so many bands, artists, albums, and it's been incredible to just research and listening to so many talented people talk about their art and the craft, things that I like and love. It's been a pleasure to talk about it. Thank you so much for being with me since last year, or if you're seeing this for the first time, welcome. And don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel, because I do have other videos that I want to put out like this year. So, like Bad Omens, it's just getting started. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video, and take care.
Earlier this year, Corey Taylor from Slipknot called you one of the, I'm going to get this quote correct, they called you one of the 3 bands that are carrying the flag for rock music. putting you alongside with like Turnstile and Sleep Token. So like, especially coming from Corey, like what does that mean to kind of be one of the rock bands that are bringing everybody forward?
I mean, those are very nice words, obviously, from a guy who's been around for forever. And I don't know. I mean, it's just awesome. We're really just trying to be out here and do our really best all the time. And it's fun that it's actually, going well. And like people liking our music, and then, they enjoy watching us live. We put so much attention, so much work, we put so much of ourselves into this. So it's really fun to have it actually bloom and work. But then, Slipknot, it's been like a favorite band for all of us, I think, growing up. So when he comes out and says that he even knows about us is always like flattering. So